Yeezy Gap.
Yeezy Gap.
Yeezy.
This bright blue puffer jacket is the first item to drop from the Yeezy Gap collection. The $200 coat was released for pre-sale on June 8, 2021, which was also Kanye West's 44th birthday. While the blue puffer won't ship until fall 2021, and the black and red colorways won't ship until even later, they've already made their way to reseller sites like StockX and Grailed for nearly 3 times as much. West says the deal made a huge impact on his finances, telling Joe Rogan,
"My net worth went from $3.3 billion to $5 billion, and I've been asking the people around me to run the story. They never ran it."
Analysts estimate that the Gap will generate nearly $1 billion in incremental sales in 2022. And the Gap is betting on Kanye West's influence to revive the brand, which has been struggling to stay relevant in a world of fast fashion and hypebeasts.
When I put on a pair of Yeezys, in particular, one of his latest silhouettes, I felt like Ye walking out of the limo in the Paris Fashion Week. I just felt like a superstar.
Here's how Kanye West could save the Gap in his quest to take over mainstream fashion. This is Suddenly Obsessed.
I always saw the Gap as like being the Apple of apparel. And I always had clothes that were kind of chill, like they could be at the Gap. They were not overly fashionable.
West always dreamed of making it big in the fashion world, but was met with severe criticism by industry insiders.
People in the industry were very much so like, who is this rapper? Trying to be in fashion?
In 2009, he stunned the fashion world with the Air Yeezy 1, designed in collaboration with Nike. The line of shoes were mocked by critics, but coveted by sneakerheads. The Air Yeezy 2 Red October was released in 2014. The shoe has become one of the hottest sneakers in history. A pair in size 9 hovers around $15,000 on StockX. After just 4 years, West left Nike for Adidas to launch what would become a wildly popular footwear line.
I think everyone kind of looks at him as this visionary and ahead of the wave, and you've seen, kind of what he's done with Kardashians and, their own personal style, and just really be spearheading trends. The biker shorts, those are back, and the dad sneakers, and then now the dad cap, and it's like all these different things that you see being integrated into these brands who may have not really thought of it otherwise, and I think it's respected now.
While Kanye West was becoming a household name, the Gap was fading into irrelevance. The Gap was a staple in the fashion industry in the 90s, known for its preppy yet casual aesthetic, which included khakis, button-down shirts, and the famous Gap logo sweatshirt.
So growing up in the 90s, I always remember that Gap was a cool brand. What stood out to me was the old school commercials that they had with LL Cool J. But in recent years, I really haven't even checked for anything Gap related.
If you look at Gap sales, they over the past 10 years have declined enormously. The group has been on a continuous slide in terms of sales and market share.
Declining sales led to legal troubles. Gap is facing multiple lawsuits over unpaid rent. And in October 2020, Gap Inc. announced the closure of up to 30% of its stores in North America by 2024. CEO Sonia Singhal hopes to take the Gap to the next level.
I've always said Gap is one of the most iconic brands in the world. If we're going to have product, it's going to be beautiful, modern design, well executed, great quality, great fit. And if we're going to do partnerships, they're going to be big ones.
Details on how much West will earn from the Gap have not been disclosed. Gap has been so secretive, retail analysts won't even venture a guess. "Sorry not to be more help," one said in an email.
We do know that this is a 10-year agreement between Kanye West and Gap, and Kanye West is supposed to receive royalties and fees based on how much product is ultimately sold.
Gap's former CEO, Mickey Drexler, advised West not to do the deal because, simply put, Gap is too corporate. But the jacket drove $7 million in sales in one night, as reported by Yahoo Finance. And this intense interest in the coat is a big deal for the legacy brand. Kanye West fans will recognize how his deal with the Gap is a callback to his teenage years. At age 16, he worked at a Gap in Chicago selling clothes, and he even rapped about it in the song Spaceship from his 2004 album, The College Dropout.
Let's go back to the Gap.
West often speaks out about growing up poor. He credits his childhood dream of owning a pair of Jordans with his desire to create affordable designs for the masses.
When I was in 4th grade, I was drawing Jordans. When my mama couldn't afford them, I was drawing those Jordans. Getting kicked out of class for drawing them.
The Yeezy Gap line will be more expensive than traditional Gap items, but not extraordinarily so.
We're not talking about the luxury segment of the market where you would walk into a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci.
A full-price Gap overcoat costs $228. Global data retail analyst Neil Saunders says the Yeezy Gap line items could range from $25 to $200.
What I think we will also see, which is a very big difference to Gap, is I think we'll see a lot being sold through at full price.
It will be interesting to watch if you do see some of those consumers, maybe more lower income consumers that weren't able to afford some of those products in the past, now have the opportunity to do so with this Gap line. For Gap, it's certainly a way for it to boost its image a bit by partnering with such a big celebrity and a big name in the entertainment world.
Collabs with high-profile celebrities are nothing new. Travis Scott earns an estimated $10 million per year from Nike. Analysts predict the Yeezy Gap partnership will do extremely well, and initial fan reactions have been positive across social media.
I feel like Kanye West was one of the first true influencers in that people just liked the way he dressed, they thought he had good taste, and just wanted to look like him.
According to Wells Fargo, Yeezy Gap could rake in nearly $1 billion in sales in the first year. But the core Gap offerings could remain stagnant, and that may spell trouble for the retailer, while the Yeezy line gets all of the hype and drives the retailer's sales.
Now, what's important to understand with that is that with Nike and with Adidas, Kanye did have a very positive effect and still does have a positive effect with Adidas. But the sales that he generates in volume terms are a relatively small proportion of those businesses. So in some ways, Kanye and his designs and Yeezy are the icing on the cake. They're the kind of bit that makes people go, ooh, this is interesting. And they become very successful lines in their own right, but the core brands are actually working in the first place.
The Gap intentionally kept the Yeezy line distinct from its traditional offerings.
It's not going to pull Gap up and suddenly make Gap cool overnight. There's no coherence really between the core of Gap and the Yeezy products.
But early signs are promising for the brand. Overnight, interest in Gap skyrocketed after the collaboration with Yeezy was announced on June 26, 2020. Experts say West could have done this partnership with almost any brand, and the results would have been the same. But Gap gives West something higher-end competitors aren't able to: the opportunity to democratize his fashion designs.
And I think that's part of his aim, and to have a whole diversity of people, different income levels, different backgrounds, to shop and enjoy his fashion. So I think if that happens, he'll see that as a great success as well.
With Gap's position as a mainstream American brand, West has a better chance of turning Yeezy into a household name. The partnership also has potential to convert younger Yeezy customers into Gap shoppers.
Someone within Gap should be looking strategically and saying, wow, look at all these Gen Z consumers who are coming to our website now. Because especially if something is sold out, the question is, well, then how do you get them to buy something else, an alternative?
I think it's obvious from a lot of the trends that we've seen over the last 10, 20 years that Kanye is definitely ahead of the wave. So I think a lot of shoppers want to be on that wave with him.
This kind of Yeezy lifestyle has become so big that I have my entire family wearing it, from my girlfriend to my daughter to my grandmother. Even my mom has a pair of Yeezy foam runners and multiple pairs of Yeezys in her own collection.